Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Audio Wave Network studios here on Detroit's Lower East Side, powered by the East Side Community Network. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens.
Thank you for rocking with us yet again. We want you to like and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. Remember, we drop a new episode every other Tuesday like hot cakes. So be sure to like and subscribe anywhere you can listen to podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. We're on all of the platforms. And so be sure to like and subscribe and share episode with a friend. Thank y'all for listening to us today. How y'all doing? How you doing, Donna?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am good. How's your weekend?
Well, grant writing. So I think I've
talk about the
through.
life of a nonprofit professional, huh?
You know, we keep wanting to hire a grant writer, but the issue is a lot of times when we're writing, we're also doing program development. And that's not something you can always outsource. So until we can get that outsourced, that ends up being something that gets piled onto everything else.
So a weekend full of writing.
Yeah.
So what does your space have to look like for you to write? Because
I have to be alone. I have to be alone in my thoughts and not interrupted by people wanting to know things that they can find out tomorrow.
I need a lot of sunlight. Like I like.
Oh, sunlight. Absolutely. I need sunlight. I need for it to be bright. I need for it to be calm.
Yes.
And everything to be relaxing because I have to go into my zone where I'm really allowing myself to, get full bore into an imaginative space where creativity happens.
Yeah. I feel it. Yeah, I've essentially moved into our atrium at the office because there's more windows and more light can come in. There's not enough light coming into my office, and so one of our coworkers, Ricky, he came in and said, "Gosh, Orlando, so you needed a bigger office, huh?"
I did that the other day though because it can get a little bit overwhelming just to be in that square space without a lot of light coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you need the light.
Yeah.
My weekend was fun, I guess. I went to a conference early Saturday morning, and then a woman that I'm dating, we went and did pottery. We had a pottery. We made bowls.
Where'd you go, Pewabic?
No, we didn't go to Pewabic. Someplace, she planned the whole thing. Someplace in Royal Oak, Creative Arts Digital Studio.
Yeah.
And so the only reference that I have for pottery, you're going to laugh at this, is the movie Ghost. You remember the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, and how Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze, y'all can't see my hands, but I'm making the pot that Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze was making in the movie to the Righteous Brothers. Is that the Righteous Brothers song? Oh, my love.
You probably know more about that than me.
Oh, man. And so I get there, of course, and I mentioned, I'm like, she's like, have you ever done this before? I said, no, but I've seen it on the movie Ghost. And she cracked up. She was like, literally everyone who comes in here says that. So that was fun. I saw The Lion King.
How was it?
I'm indifferent about it. It was, I don't want to spoil, everybody should see it, whoever wants to see it. I don't want to spoil it. But it was, for me, it was just weird watching very realistic looking animals speak English.
Yeah. That's basically the gist of everything that I've read on, in reviews, that it's a beautiful nature movie and,
it looks like Discovery Channel.
Yeah. So,
But it's very dark. It's not, I think The Lion King was rated G. Mm-hmm. This I think this may have to be rated PG-13 or at least PG.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a dark looking movie. It loses some of its color with it being live action. I thought Donald Glover and Seth Rogen were great. Mm-hmm. Beyonce played the role of Nala.
I've heard.
Yeah, Beyonce has her strengths, and
always, remember
acting
to play your
and voice
strengths.
acting is just not one of her strengths.
Yeah,
and I love her.
I've heard. But you know what? I wonder what's in her contract that allowed her to release that album using all of the Disney themes. Like, that's some real power there, right?
Oh, she has power. She is powerful.
Yeah.
She is power. What company did she walk away from? So she walked into a boardroom. I think it was a sporting goods company and sport wear. And she walked into the boardroom to talk about a potential partnership. They were going to have Beyonce, right? And there were no people of color in this boardroom. She walked out.
She's got a lot of strengths, but it's a reminder to all of us in every field and every walk of life, play your strengths. Okay? You got to know what they are. Play your strengths. In the nonprofit business, we have to play our strengths too. Sometimes we start thinking we can do things we can't do. And I'd rather, not do something halfway well when I can bring somebody on who can succeed. But it's a level of professional maturity to be willing to say, this ain't me, okay? I've got my strengths. And if she wants to be an actress, there's always classes. However she works to dance and sing, she can put some effort into it. But anytime I've seen her behind camera where she's had a speaking role, even when she's just talking about herself, I'm just not feeling her.
Yeah, it is tough watching the Queen construct a sentence because I think that's part of the reason why she doesn't give interviews anymore, because I think she recognizes that, or the people in her camp recognizes that. The other piece of it that was funny is I think Disney knew it, so her lines are as limited as possible. She don't have a whole she didn't have.
Yeah. Just play your strengths to take an acting class. And that's a lesson to all of us. We're all good at some things, but not everything.
Things, but not everything. So that was my weekend. I definitely prefer the original film. Yeah.
Well, when you make a perfect film, it's always going to be difficult for somebody to outdo it. And I think sometimes people get so caught up in the technology of something or in the creativity of something that they forget the storyline and the heart and the soul. Yeah. And it sounds like it's kind of soulless from what I've heard from some people. And nobody wants to see a soulless Lion King.
Or a dark Lion King. I'm not feeling it.
Right.
I wasn't really feeling it. But everyone, especially the Lion King purists, you should definitely check it out.
I'm going to check it out, but I'm going to wait until I can check it out, on HBO and Netflix. I'm not going to rush to the theater.
I hear you. Well, it's time for Fresh Off the Press, news that we are thinking about. This is our commentary on news items relevant to the city of Detroit. If you have news items that you want us to cover, you can send them to authenticallydetroit@gmail.com or hit us up on our socials at authenticallydetroit. Donna, it's on you.
So Orlando, you gave this line to me, but Maurice Cox is leaving Detroit for the top planning job in Chicago, according to sources from within the city.
Yeah.
Are you saying yay or yeah?
No, I'm saying yeah, according to sources.
Okay. I was just trying to understand.
So Cranes Detroit is the source of that. And so I think in an official statement by the mayor thanked him for getting a lot of the RFPs in the strategic neighborhoods off the ground. And I think Maurice Cox himself released a statement about celebrating some of the victories that he feels like he's achieved while at the planning department. I can't believe it's been, 4 years since he's been here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you this, my circle of friends and influence, they feel a little indifferent about this departure. And I have a friend in Chicago who works in community development who is very concerned. She wants to set up a time for us to talk because she works in the planning and development scene in Chicago and wants some intel on Mr. Cox's time here in Detroit. But that's news.
Oh, it is. I mean, I've heard people. I haven't heard anybody who's indifferent. Either they're happy or they're not. But if you've worked with him, you have a strong opinion one way or the other because he has a strong personality. He has a strong impact on the city. He definitely left his imprint on how redevelopment is being done in Detroit.
Yeah,
we think of it differently now.
Design,
He's hired something like 36 new people. And they're different than the people who were there before. There's an emphasis not just on design, but on a specific type of design. He created or worked to create a Detroit aesthetic. Now it looks kind of like a Harlem aesthetic or a Bronx aesthetic. It's this new urban sameness that a lot of people are really pushing back against and saying, why does every city have to look the same?
Right.
And I think that while we can definitely look at some public spaces and see that they are improved, one of the interesting places, probably the most interesting impact of all, is the Spirit Plaza.
I was going to mention that. Yeah. You want to go talk about that?
Well, Spirit Plaza closed off Woodward at Jefferson, and has created some discomfort for people who now have to drive up Griswold, and it's a little bit different. And I've heard people really celebrate Spirit Plaza going away. But what I've also seen is other people saying that Spirit Plaza has actually created a space for the arts in downtown Detroit. And there are actually people on the social justice side of things who are fighting for something that Maurice Cox created. And I think that, that is one of those things where there's an intersection between placemakers and urban planners in the city and what they wanted to see happen and what some of the social justice people want to see, because they see that as a space. I believe Raquel Castaneda Lopez voted to keep it, which was a big surprise because she felt that gave people access to downtown who would not ordinarily have it. And the city is letting artists perform there and giving them space free of charge.
Yeah. And so I think, there's an age-old debate. I wouldn't even call it age-old, but really a more recent debate around the concept that we community developers know as complete streets and placemaking versus a city being built solely for the comfort and luxury of motorists. And I think there is some tension there here in the city of Detroit, whether it's a bike lane, whether it is the closing of a street to make way for some sort of public space. Detroiters love our cars, and we love the ability to drive our streets.
We do.
And so there is.
And sometimes it's not what you do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the way you do it. I don't know anybody. I'm a Northwest Detroiter, by birth. That's where I grew up in Northwest. And I don't know anybody who loved the boulevards on Livernois. And I don't know anybody who is not furious about the way that they're being transformed. Right now, when you can bring a guest into town and Baker's doesn't have musicians playing on a Wednesday. Are you kidding me?
On Wednesday night?
On a Wednesday night, I took guests, Rachel Alternative and her husband were in town for the announcement of the foundation.
Yeah.
And we drove up to Baker's. First, we went to Burt's. They didn't have a band. Then we went to Baker's, and they didn't have a band. The band they had been called off because they don't have a large enough crowd to pay for the band.
Right, because
the streets are torn up.
Yeah.
And so it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And it's whether or not you have to tear up the entire avenue of fashion all at one time, or can you do block by block, side by side, something that allows for people to stay in business. When the Q line was put on Woodward, they didn't just destroy Woodward. Woodward was built, in quarters, and, you did one side of the street and then you did the other side of the street with the goal of making sure that the street remained whole. And then I think that people feel as though the boulevards are going to be replaced with bike lanes. And there's still, bike lanes aren't popular among legacy Detroiters.
No, they're not. No. Not the legacy Detroiters I talk to. But one of the other things that's coming up for me and what you're saying is, what is the cost of quote unquote revitalization? So folks have wanted the previous boulevards on Livernois gone for a very, very long time. And folks wanted to see them gone in a relatively quick manner, right? And so things are now happening, and I think the community wanted those boulevards to be gone or to be redone. But all of this comes at a cost, right? And so I guess I'm asking, when we want something, when we want revitalization, do we weigh the disadvantageous costs that may come to the community or the business infrastructure that line some of these corridors.
Wouldn't it be nice if every profession had a Hippocratic oath, first do no harm? Wouldn't it be nice if in every profession people said, let me figure out how to minimize any harm and disruption that might happen? And I'm not certain that can happen unless you talk to folks.
Yeah.
And plan with folks and find out what's the best time of the year to do this.
Yeah.
When everything is done with a construction time frame and when it's done with a pocketbook time frame and not done with the people who you are impacting front and center, you're going to have some miscues.
Yeah.
That's why we have people-driven planning at Eastside Community Network.
Absolutely.
Because we understand that there are some unintended consequences for your plans. You didn't mean to do this. I don't think you meant to drive people out of business. And had you talked to people and worked with them, maybe you could have figured it out.
Yeah.
And then I think that there is sometimes a time and place for a good old retrofit. You want bike lanes? Do something interesting with the boulevards that you have there. You don't necessarily have to remove them. How many millions of dollars did you spend putting those hideous things in place? Okay, but you can make them nice. I just think that use your best artists, your best planning, your best efforts to try to figure out how can we help protect this emerging business district, the only Black business district in the city of Detroit, from destruction. Now, you can say, oh, I didn't mean to do it. My bad. But my bad doesn't pay the bills.
And
people want to know.
Here, yes.
There's absolutely a racial equity piece. And you can say, wait a minute, you know what? I'm colorblind. I didn't do this with a racial thought in my head. But if you are doing this and you're having a disproportionate impact on a business community that's already so fragile, then you have to be accountable for it. And that accountability doesn't start in the middle of a project. It starts at the beginning. And that's where I can say quite honestly that over his tenure, Maurice Cox has had a significant impact on the footprint of Detroit. We look different than we did when he started here. 4 years, there's so many projects that have gone up. But I think that it's also an honest assessment to say that some of the heartaches that we had could have been avoided if there had been more listening in place. So I look forward to the leadership that I see coming behind Maurice, learning from him and taking some of the strong things he did in this community to a whole new level by trying to listen to the people in neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's that I think the entire Fitzgerald project has been a stain on the progress that Maurice has tried to make because it has been so controversial in terms of timelines and, funding and everything. And it's still not.
Well, the last thing I'm going to say about this is, things happen. Mm-hmm. You have a great plan. Your plan doesn't materialize as you wanted it to. And you have to regroup and replan and reconsider and all of that kind of stuff. But the other part of this is that you came out the gate with so much arrogance about what you were going to do and how quickly you were going to do it. And people felt talked down to all over the city of Detroit.
Well, there's actually a quote from Councilman Spivey around this the Spirit Plaza debate and him saying just that.
Right.
Like, I don't feel like you respect us in so many regards. I feel like you're talking down to us. That was his exact quote. Yeah.
And so, when you can have a sitting member of Detroit City Council feeling condescended to, imagine being a resident in a neighborhood where things aren't getting done the way you want or they aren't getting done at all.
Yeah. And
I've seen so many people also post quotes about times that they felt like they have not been heard. So here's a message to the city. Listen to your citizens. We have brilliance in every single block, in every single neighborhood in the city of Detroit. People have lived experience. That is, your degree from Harvard is no match for my experience living on this block. And if you want to understand what it takes to change this neighborhood, maybe you ought to ask some people who live here and understand why people have moved away, why people have stayed, what people are willing to do, and what happens at night when you leave. And when you have all of that understanding and you empower people locally to help build on that understanding, great things can happen. Now, I don't know if this was intentional by the Detroit Free Press, where they had this list of projects that were announced and did not come to fruition, announced and then went away.
I saw that this morning.
But I thought it was kind of interesting, the timing of that article. Maybe they were planning it all along. But without coming out with a specific critique, you have all of these projects also. Some
of them predate him, too.
Some of them do predate him. Many of them don't. And some of the projects that have not really materialized aren't on that list. And we still don't know what's happening. And the reason they're not on that list is because people are saying, those projects are still happening. We're just not ready for them. For example, the Meyer that's going to be on Jefferson.
Yeah.
I was driving by that site on this weekend just trying to figure out where it was going to go, only to find out that it's been pushed back at least a year. Now, I'm going to remind you, it was supposed to be built by the end of this year.
Yeah.
And so part of that is also having a planning department that can help level set expectations for developers who are coming here and help, what time frames make sense.
And a PR strategy around communicating to the public around pushback of said deadlines and goals and things like that, because, some development, people are excited about and ready to see, and then it doesn't happen and no one knows why it's not happening, right? So
yeah,
some sort of communication strategy.
So I'm looking for some great leadership to come in and help change things around. And then, my final question is the next neighborhood. So I know I don't really feel as though Fitzgerald has really done what it was supposed to. What's happening in Island View?
So there, Invest Detroit, the community development financial institution, helped to get one project off the ground, and that is the CO. Right. I think Invest Detroit has either one or two projects left to complete in Island View. I know that Butzel, there was a complete plan around the revitalization of the Butzel Family Center, the Recreation Center. They're going to put, I think, millions of dollars in redoing and revitalizing the center. I don't know when that time. I'm not sure. I
remember talking to the city, and the city saying very specifically to me, Esther Yang and Maurice Cox saying very specifically to me, we're not going to put any projects in a plan that we don't have the funds and the capability to deliver on. Mm-hmm. And I don't see any of the streetscape improvements they've been talking about. I don't see any of the investments that have been discussed being deployed inside of neighborhoods. What I see is some really nice looking plans. So I'm just kind of wondering if we hit a standstill, if the funds really have been raised, if trying to have all of these planning areas there simultaneously is too much, and maybe there just needs to be a report card back to the community that is publicly shared so that everybody can know what's happening next.
I think we could get somebody in here from the planning department to help us understand all of this.
I think that's a great idea. Great.
Yeah,
let's plan that for next time.
Yeah, so we're going to have a guest here from the planning department. We don't know who yet, but we will let you know. So, fresh off the press, lights are out in Detroit. Some 400,000 residents are without power in Metro Detroit. I think that number is down to about 200,000. So various rain and storm events over the weekend caused 400,000 people to be without power. Let me tell you what I spent a lot of my weekend doing. Taking ice to family members so their meat wouldn't spoil. Keeping my car running so people could come down and charge their phones because they didn't have power, or a vehicle transporting folks from one hot place to a cool place because no power, there's no air conditioning and things like that. These rain events and these storm events are way more frequent than I remember growing up. It seems like every other day or every other week, there's almost a catastrophic state of emergency in terms of these weather events. And so for those of us who believe that climate justice is a farce or climate change is not real, I challenge you to just look at what's happening. WDET, shout out to the team at WDET. They've been running a series on what's happening to residents who live in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood, because some homes in Jefferson Chalmers are literally devastated with flooding, and we can't forget about that. We have to continue to bring that up. This is very real for a lot of people. 400,000 people without power in a city that is vulnerable, with a vulnerable population. Vulnerable meaning a lot of us are in poverty. A lot of us probably not having access to a fan or air in this kind of weather, it's dangerous, and it's a community health hazard.
It's a community health hazard. There's a climate health issue.
Yeah.
And there's actually a climate action plan for the city of Detroit that looks at the impact of the climate issues. There's a statement I read somewhere, and I'll find the article, and we can bring it to a future podcast, where they talk about the fact that if Detroit warms by 2 or 3 degrees, we'll have more deaths in Detroit than in San Antonio, Texas, than in Houston, Texas, than in most places that you associate with high heat. Mm-hmm. And the reason is the concentration of elderly people without cars or central air conditioning who are also poor.
Yes.
And so what you were doing was God's work this weekend. You make me feel like such a slouch.
Tired.
I wish I had done
Lord,
more of that.
Yes.
But nobody reached out. I didn't really know too many people who were living without power. But I mean, it's wonderful that you did that, Orlando. I think that we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do in our community. The city published a list of places you could go.
Yeah, and the recreation centers were open,
There
too.
was one recreation center on the east side of Detroit, the lower east side, and that was Butzel Center was open. Hellman is on the northeast side.
Yep.
And so, one of the criteria that the Climate Action Plan looks at is, do people live within 15-minute walk of a cooling center? If you don't live within a 15-minute walk and you're a senior citizen without transportation, it's going to be really difficult for you to access those cooling resources.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that when we look at it, it's not just our meat that spoils, it's our medicine. Anybody who's using insulin has to keep that refrigerated.
Has to keep it cold. Yeah,
if you're not keeping that cold, then you're losing. Your insulin is going bad. And the other thing is that there are some people who are using oxygen tanks and need to be hooked up to electricity.
Yeah.
And so if you are using any type of, and it's not just oxygen tanks, there's all kinds of, whether it's a dialysis machine, there are all kinds of machines that people are using inside their homes that are keeping them literally alive. And then, as of course, what happens in the water is when you have that flood water, as you have all through Jeff Chalmers, it's not just what's in your home, but what's in the street can be dangerous. You could get electrocuted if there is a circuit that gets somehow connected to it. You can get tetanus, and there are all different types of diseases. And so we're talking about a public health hazard that the city is going to have to spend millions of dollars to correct. Where I live, just today, getting to where I live, across the street from me, there's a house that's flooding the street so badly. There's like 3 inches in the 3 or 4 inches of water that you're going through every single day. And if you have the wrong car, I don't want to talk about the car stuff. You might stall out. Today it was probably 6 inches. It was really high.
Yeah.
And so I see it every day.
Yeah.
Personally, I know that now it makes me more conscious of why people get upset when the streets flood, because it's not just a nuisance, it's a hazard.
It is. And so I just want to encourage everyone out there, if you know folks who are vulnerable, if you know folks who may need you to call and check on them, especially with events like this with over 400,000, that's more than half of the citizens in the city of Detroit. Call and check on them and make sure that they're good, and, help take care of them.
Now, we also need to educate the public.
Absolutely.
Because what I saw happening was a lot of, and I'm seeing this a lot now, a lot of conspiracy around all of this. That the city is causing me to be flooded. The DTE shut off my power to give it to somebody else. And I don't know if that's true. Yes. I mean, because people feel powerless and victimized. Mm-hmm. And that produces this kind of, I don't want to call it paranoia, but we'll just say mistrust.
Well, there you have it. Donna, fresh off the press.
Well, the facial recognition argument has taken Detroit by the storm.
It sure has.
The police commissioner got arrested for speaking out at a meeting, or maybe, I don't know if he was speaking. I actually didn't see the footage. Did you see that? What happened?
I did see the footage.
Tell me about it.
So, oh my gosh, his name is
Willie
escaping
Burton?
me. Willie Burton was given a comment in regards to his opposition to facial recognition, and I believe that he didn't have the floor at the time, and so it was against Robert's Rules of Order or something.
No, they said he had permission to speak.
Yeah, it's I'm reading different things, but he would not relinquish his time, and so was escorted out by police, arrested. Yeah. And I saw the footage, and then he did let it rip later on that evening.
So when police officers arrest police commissioners, have we arrived at the upside down world? You are, sometimes I may not stop talking, but will you arrest me, Orlando? I don't know if you're getting ideas.
I think, someone makes the point about disruption really not being tolerated in a form of our public meetings in Detroit being very heavily policed. And I think in some instances, disruption is healthy. I think we have to allow for, number one, for people to disrupt. I mean, we do it at ECN all the time in how we facilitate meetings. We have to allow people to express themselves because, there's so much backstory, there's so much trauma that people are carrying, there's so much fear that people are wrestling with, and we can't arrest every disruption. We have to figure that out.
Well, it just feels to me as though when leadership is in the room, leaders have a way of learning how to manage disruption.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to lean in.
That's right.
Sometimes you got to listen. You got to take a minute off of your agenda. One of my pet peeves is we have this agenda and we're sticking with it. And somebody has a significant issue. Why am I moving on to the next agenda item?
That's right.
I'd gotta let you express yourself. I sometimes think that public leaders have to understand that they are public servants. And there's a time and a place to enforce rules and protocol. And there's a time and a place to make sure people feel heard. The face recognition issue is so significant. And at first I thought it was not even a significant issue. I was like, well, who cares? You can catch criminals, And then I learned about what it really was. Mm-hmm. And as in all things, the devil is in the details.
That's right.
And so, when you look at the number of people serving time right now, I just read this book by Brian Stevenson, Just Mercy, where there's so many people in prison, serving lifetimes in prison because of false identification. And you have software that gets it wrong about as often as it gets it right. Mm-hmm. And so I know that Police Chief Craig has said that nobody has been arrested based on mistaken identity. Well, have police officers ever said we made a mistake and we arrested the wrong person?
I don't think I've ever heard that.
That's why you have these justice centers of attorneys fighting for people to be released based on mistaken identity.
Yeah.
And then the second thing he says is no arrest will be made unless you have confirmatory evidence. Do you believe that? And what does confirmatory evidence look like? If you have a picture of some man that the software says looks like me, because apparently they can't tell the difference between men and women either, will somebody show up in my place of business and arrest me?
Well, yeah, there's some there's not speculation. There are reports that facial recognition software disproportionately misidentifies people of color.
Yes.
And so Detroit being a colored city is cause for some concern. I want to talk a little bit about the statement that the mayor released. He released a statement, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, of him strongly opposing facial recognition for surveillance. And so we have to be very clear about what that means. And I wanted to break this down because surveillance meaning live feed. So none of the green light cameras have facial recognition software, but Detroit police have facial recognition software that is used based on a still picture. So if someone captures a snapshot from a surveillance video that now becomes a still picture, facial recognition software can be utilized to identify folks who may have already have a record be identified in this. And so Mayor Duggan was very careful in how he chose his words. He's against facial recognition software for surveillance. He's not against the usage of facial recognition software. I just want to make that delineation.
And he says that you cannot use Project Greenlight for that purpose.
Right.
But there are, is it Tawana Honeycomb Petty? I'm not sure if I got her name right, but she is running a digital inclusion project. And one of the things that she looked at is the language of the contract that we have with the company. And indeed, it says that we can use this software, that Project Greenlight can be used for surveillance. So I think what I'm hearing is they're not going to use it.
Do it, yeah.
Not that those cameras are not capable of using it. And so then some people are saying, and I think it's a good question, how do we know they're going to follow the rules? Have police officers in Detroit ever been known to break rules? And who would monitor them and acknowledge that they didn't? So these are some significant questions.
Isn't that the role of the police commissioners? It's a community
I don't know if
board.
When Willie Burton started questioning some things, he's been silenced, bullied, and now arrested. And he is the only police commissioner I've seen who's come out and really challenged the police about how they enforce their rules. There's another commissioner who came out and made a complaint some time ago, and he's no longer on the commission. So I don't know how that works, but I think that we have to be really clear about the role of the police commission, and that's actually one of the roles of the Detroit Charter Revision Commission, to make sure that all of the police commissioners are elected and unappointed. Now, I want to say one more thing about the facial recognition software. The mayor says that they will only look through mugshots, right? They're not going to, and if you've been arrested, if you haven't been arrested, you're not at risk. Well, first of all, let's be real about the disproportionate risk of arrest of African-American people. More of us show up in their databases, period. Secondly, that's not true. They can pull data from your motor vehicle records, your driver's license, from any picture you've taken in the state. You are automatically included in a risk pool, and they're looking at you. And that one guy, I saw a picture of this one guy who just graduated from Hazel Park High School and looked a lot like you, Orlando. If he does anything wrong, remember I showed you that picture? Yes, he looked just like you.
My doppelganger.
You were kind of confused, okay?
I was. I'm like, wait,
did I wear that, right?
Because I was out of town, and Donna was like, you're not out of town. You're here. I'm like,
right.
Oh,
so,
gosh,
right.
That was funny.
So when you look at the potential for mistakes, it's significant.
It is.
And I want to bring up this final thing about the business owner in Grosse Pointe Woods, because people say, why is an arrest a big deal? If you didn't do anything wrong, no problem. First of all, we have such a flawed criminal justice system that the Michigan Supreme Court has said that our criminal defense system is violating the Constitution. So if you're poor and indigent and you need a good defense attorney, that's kind of you're not guaranteed that in the state. You're not guaranteed investigators and the cost of a criminal defense. People are being encouraged to plead bargain frequently for crimes they did not commit. Secondly, the one business owner in Grosse Pointe Woods where the camera said he looked like somebody, it didn't look like him. Every black person I know was like, that doesn't even look like him, but apparently somebody couldn't tell the difference because we all kind of look similar to this surveillance technology and whoever pointed this guy out. So the police went to his place of business. He owns a gym, arrested him, found out he did not commit the crime. Over a year later, he's still listed as a person of interest.
Wow.
So he's suing the police department. Why is he listed a person of interest? Because they said, we can't prove you didn't commit the crime. And until we found who did commit the crime, we're going to keep you as a person of interest, because if we stop you from being a person of interest and we find out that you're innocent, then it's going to look bad. So he's suing, as he should. But that's the risk of false arrest. He lost business. He lost community standing. He has this thing hanging on his record, which is so unfair to him. And anybody who looks at this picture says it doesn't look like him. Now, what the Grosse Pointe Woods police say is we cannot confirm that it's him.
Okay. So much.
It is.
Last fresh off the press, a portion of Detroit Freeway, now named Aretha Franklin Memorial Highway, WXYZ, is reporting this. So from Livernois to I-94 on the Lodge, it is now going to be known as the Aretha Franklin Memorial Highway. So no more we on the Lodge with it, we on the Franklin with it. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. It's a nice nod to the Queen of Soul. She gets the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater. She has a highway. She has a street.
You know,
what's next?
I just wish if you're going to give her the highway, we just give her the whole lodge. It's only the lodge from 8 Mile to downtown. And now I have to, my GPS is going to be so confused. First we were on the lodge, now we're on the Franklin.
Now we're on the Franklin
Stay
Memorial
straight and
Highway.
go on to the lodge. Yeah, why don't we just give her the
Siri,
freeway?
Yeah, Siri never gets it right.
I think the Lodge family probably had something to do with that.
I'm sure they're still around. But congratulations to the family and the estate of the late great
I'm gonna argue
Franklin.
to give her the rest, but yes, congratulations.
I actually finally saw Amazing Grace. I saw it on the flight back from New York. I was in New York last week. And let me tell you something, as a church baby, growing up in the church, the Baptist church, and watching Aretha Franklin just stand flat-footed and sing, I really became emotional. There was something in me that just came up that reminded me of just how dynamic and how spirited and magnificent the Black church experience has been for so many people. Aretha embodied that in that film, and it was so amazing. I'm like on the flight, like fighting back tears. It was really dope to see her in that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So congrats to her family and estate. So, topic of the day. In our thematic topic this week, we want to tackle the 110th annual NAACP convention happening in Detroit right now. What does it mean for Detroit to have a national organization here, especially the NAACP? And presidential debates will be happening to culminate the activities as well. Donna, you're actually going to an NAACP
I am.
Event and stuff. Yeah,
I'm going to a reception. I was at the dinner this year.
Yeah, I went to the Freedom Fund dinner and heard.
I didn't see you there,
Yeah,
but you heard.
I was there. Yeah,
Kamala Harris.
I heard part of Kamala Harris. I didn't. I had to leave because Game of Thrones was coming on and it was the finale, and I couldn't miss it.
Get this man some DVR.
Gotta watch it live because people spoil it. So what does this mean for the city of Detroit? Everybody's here. All the chapters are here for the national convention. We have a local chapter here in the city of Detroit that I have some critiques for, but I really want to get your take on the convention being here and what and Detroit being on this national platform yet again.
Well, as Simone Lightfoot has said, Detroit is Big Mama.
Everybody wants to learn from Detroit.
As Detroit goes, so goes the rest of the nation.
Yeah, she's so dope.
And, listen, my grandfather, Donovan Heston Givens Sr., was one of the charter members, lifetime member of the Detroit NAACP. And so my family was part of that, and I always had, very strong positive feelings about some of the work of the NAACP. Detroit has had the largest chapter over the years. We've had some significant things happen. When Dr. Ossian Sweet was arrested, it was the NAACP Legal Defense Fund that came forward and defended him.
That's right.
And so, the Detroit NAACP has always been a force. And it remains a force. Now, some people are saying a force of what?
That was actually going to be my question. Yes, thank you for asking my question. Can you answer it?
I think that most civil rights organizations are at a crossroads in 2019. I think that you had the civil rights era where it was clear how civil rights were going to be prosecuted. The fight for civil rights was so very crystal clear because all Black people were being treated a certain kind of way. We were all being discriminated from, being discriminated against in housing and in education and things like that. I think the last big fight that the NAACP fought in Michigan was the affirmative action fight. And that was in, 2005, 2006, when affirmative action was reversed, and the NAACP put up a great fight, really trying to push for that. The NAACP has fought for car insurance equity over the years. in the state of Michigan, has not been successful in that fight, but has certainly fought that fight. I think where questions sometimes come up are when we had emergency management. Did the NAACP fight strong enough and hard enough? Now, I believe that the Detroit branch sued in federal court against emergency management and lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those fights have happened. And but we also have a local chapter that gave Kid Rock an award.
Mm-hmm. I for me, and their questions and may as well be critiques too, is we experience tax foreclosures in a majority Black city at a massive and destructive rate, and I heard nothing. We talked about just earlier the racial equity lens of the development happening along Livernois that's disadvantageously affecting Black businesses. The sole Black business district in the city, I'm hearing nothing. We have development all over the city of Detroit happening to and for some people. A lot of Black Detroiters aren't feeling like it's for them. Where is the voice? Where is the advocacy? Where is the challenge to power at the head of this city? And I'm not seeing that.
Well, I'm going to risk getting thrown out of Detroit for saying this, and maybe out of the picnics and everything. Okay, but it seems to me as though when you look at the history of the NAACP from Walter White to W.E.B. Du Bois, you had a very specific type of membership in the NAACP, and the membership of the NAACP was always Black elites. Mm-hmm. And the fights that the NAACP fought always had, and I don't want to say always because I don't want to end up overstating a case, a respectability frame. You'll recall that Claudette Colbert, before just civil rights in general, Claudette Colbert in Birmingham, Alabama, rode the bus. She was a pregnant teenage brown-skinned girl. And when she refused to get up, she was arrested, but she was not the focus of activism. Instead, there was a plan. How do we bring this other woman? I don't ever want to diminish Rosa Parks because she was always much more than that bus boycott.
That's right.
But she also fit a respectability frame. The kinds of issues that you're talking about are the kinds of issues that respectable Black people have always struggled with. And that is what to do with people who might be financially irresponsible in our eyes. What to do with people who might not pay their water bills. And yes, I get it. Detroit, poor Detroiters need to change, but let's lift them up so they can change.
Yeah.
And when you look at the whole issue of mass incarceration, every civil rights organization in the nation literally sitting on his hands watching it happen. Michelle Alexander called them all out in the New Dream Co. and said, how could you have been asleep at the wheel? When you look at the number of Black leaders, strong, positive, wonderful Black leaders who signed on to that legislation and who will defend to their death Joe Biden for writing it, saying, well, people were afraid, then you have to understand that the fight is not just about racial equity. It's about class equity.
Yeah.
And the NAACP has never been a class equity organization. I don't think that's what it's been designed to do. I think that if you look at the board structure, if you look at the leadership structure, that's not what it's designed to do. So I say let the NAACP. There's some issues that we need them for.
But I'll tell you this, that design and structure is not sustainable because it's not one that young people like myself are buying into at all, right? I don't subscribe, and I've said this before, to the politics of Black respectability. I don't subscribe to that.
That is exactly what's happening right now in civil rights fights across the nation is young Black Lives Matter. Young Black people are bringing it to their elders, bringing it to people in my generation and saying, no, that's not good enough.
Right. And so if we don't feel welcome in this structure, in this movement, number one, we're going to create our own, i.e. Black Lives Matter. But your generation, or a couple of generations before mine, you guys are getting ready to age.
Are you calling me old?
I'm not calling you old, but what I'm saying is you guys are getting ready to age, and
I
it
had
can't
this
be an
exact
organization.
Conversation with somebody online today. I'm not going to tell you who. Where somebody said, Tom Perez said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the future of the Democratic Party. He said maybe 40 years from now. I said in 10 years from now, do you think Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker of the House?
Right.
Right. I mean, let's do some math here. At some point, unless we have some magic going on, everybody's going to have to step down, and your generation will replace us.
And so this crossroads that you are talking about is something that needs to be uplifted and talked about, because I really do feel that the leadership just doesn't have their hands on the pulse of what is really happening, or they see it and don't care. I don't know.
I think that it's a different worldview. And if you accept the worldview that really is this neoliberal worldview, that if you get a good education and you do the right things and you pull your pants up and you wear your hair cut, you get your hair cut, and you speak the king's English, you'll get ahead in life. And when you don't do those things, somehow you're going to fail. And you can see it threaded through all of the democratic politics in this nation. You can see it threaded through so many social organizations. And so I think that the young leaders constitute a threat, and I think that's exactly as it should be. Young people always replace old people. That's the way the world turns. And the NAACP has played a role, sometimes a great role, sometimes a mediocre role, and recently not that much of a role, because the civil rights issues that we're dealing with right now impact people at all class levels, right?
All class levels.
But what happens is when you have tied everything around this respectability mindset, if I lost my house and I am part of the in crowd, can I tell people?
No, you can't.
It's a silent crisis.
It's a silent struggle.
Because people feel shame.
Yeah.
Now, what we have to do is destigmatize predatory practices and say, I have been a victim of predatory practices. People have to stand out and name it.
It's proven, guys.
But people don't want to acknowledge having been victims. People always want to, seem strong and powerful. And so it's torn our communities up. We've lost massive amounts of black wealth. There's no housing agenda really to talk about that. In fact, and I want to be careful, because the person who invited me to this dinner tonight is actually the person who was quoted saying this. But the NAACP has a youth chapter that's teaching financial responsibility so young people can become homeowners, because home ownership is the way out of poverty. That is still being told to kids whose parents lost their homes and became poor as a result of predatory lending. So I think that there is a need for a new generation. This is the last hurrah of the baby boomer generation. These next 10 years.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't calling you old, but
listen, sometimes I call myself old because I start doing math. It's like, dang, well, either am I middle-aged or what? Because I have to ask myself, if I do the math, will I live to 110? And I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too.
I'm hopeful, but I'm not sure that's the middle. But yeah, I think that there is a need for a respectful critique. I think that creating something different. Keep in mind that the NAACP relies on banks and corporations for its very existence. Every year, they've got to raise money from entities that they're expected to stand up and criticize. And if they critique too loudly, they can lose their charter. And so, one of the things I think we have to look at is the model that Barack Obama used running for president, Obama for America, that Bernie Sanders is using, and to a certain extent Elizabeth Sanders, and that is we've got to put our own money.
Warren.
Oh, my goodness, Elizabeth Warren, thank you. We've got to put our own money behind causes and quit depending on corporations, because as long as the money we're depending on comes from corporations, we'll never have any power.
Yeah.
We are sitting right now in a building that was purchased and fixed up initially by Eastside Community Network, because people in the community purchased community stock at $25 a share. We're not wealthy people, but we have enough money and enough will to collect money so that we can invest in our own organizations and our own causes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to require a level of trust, but it's also going to start with a vision that people have. And I just look forward to the young people who set forth a vision that is so inclusive and meaningful that people are willing to cut their checks and now cash app this organization.
Cash app us.
You know, on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I wonder if it will be under the esteem named the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Well,
I just wonder that.
It's called Colored People.
Yeah.
First of all, change your name. Secondly, you know, I think that the NAACP is also struggling to figure out who they're going to represent. I know that there's times when the NAACP says we're going to represent all people of color, not just black people, but anybody of color. And I heard somebody say, I think it was the president or somebody else say, we're concerned about equity, not just for black people, but for all people. The reality is we need an organization that fights for black people in the same way that Arab Americans need an organization that fights for Arab American and Islamic people, in the same way that Hispanic people need an organization that fights for Hispanic people, in the same way that people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, LGBTQI have an organization that fights for them. Mm-hmm. We have to be as assertive about fighting for ourselves and as certain that we have value independently of these other groups.
That's right.
And that we have something to preserve in our culture and our national well-being. And so if it is NAACP, the first thing you'll know is they've changed the name. NAABP.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. Yeah, so that wraps up our thematic
You think
topic.
I can still come to the picnic?
I think maybe, I don't know.
Shooting arrows at the NAACP?
Well, I don't think you really shot arrows at the NAACP rather than this caste system that we know exists in the city of Detroit. And I've had, I guess, the privilege of being in rooms with Detroit's elite, black elite. And it's a different kind of experience. It's not a room that I'm comfortable being in at all. I can survive and I could charm, but it's different.
Yeah, I was raised there.
Yeah,
the air is a little different. I was raised in that room, and blessedly, I've now live in a larger room. It's sort of like when you go into the atrium and you can breathe and have all that sunlight.
And have all the sunlight, yeah.
And room to be who you are and to really grow and connect with all God's people. So it's a blessing. But I do want to say that I think that there is a needed conversation about that topic. And I think the fact that we don't have that conversation about that topic and we keep on nibbling at the edges about hierarchy within our race and how the hierarchy has worked to create disempowerment among some people and also to weaken our fight against ourselves.
Yes.
Right now in the city of Detroit, when you look at tax foreclosures, when you look at the planning department, when you look at the water department, you're not looking at white people pulling the levers.
Mm.
Now, they may have the power behind the levers, but that's who Detroit is also, is that we have black people who have assumed the roles of power and influence in our community. And when that power and influence works against us, sometimes we don't know how to fight back. If you had a white emergency manager in Detroit, we would have fought so hard. But when Darnell Early came in, I'll never forget that the Alpha Phi Alpha Gamma Lambda chapter gave this man a welcoming party at the Charles Wright Museum. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be at this event watching all these people welcome in this dictator.
Yeah.
Because he was an alpha.
Yeah.
And he wore the right colors.
Stripped Detroiters of their democratic power. And the presidential debates are here this week.
They are.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see, what that happens. So on the show, we're going to be talking to U.S. Representative of the 13th Congressional District, Rashida Tlaib, in just a few moments. And she also spoke at the NAACP convention this morning. So
I'm glad she's in Detroit. She's back where she came from.
So stay tuned. We will be talking to her in just a minute, and we're going to ask her whether or not presidential debates actually make a difference and sway people who may be moderate or in the middle of figuring out which candidate they want to support.
The only people who don't think that are supporting Joe Biden and are anticipating exactly what I think is going to happen later this week. So they've decided it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was contacted last week by the Detroit Free Press to come into the Free Press studios to essentially record a video message to the presidential candidates, answering a question around what has the national narrative of Detroit gotten wrong, and what message do you want to send to the candidates about Detroit and Michigan overall. And so I'm thanks Free Press for inviting me to do that. So I think I'm going to do just that. I'm going to answer the question, and hopefully it will stir some really good conversation and thoughts on part of the presidential candidates.
I think that's great. I think it would be great to have presidential candidates talking about urban issues.
Yeah.
The issues of displacement that are happening all over the nation, the growing issue of homelessness.
Yeah.
And the rising cost of housing. You see people are paying $1,200 a month to live in pods in San Francisco. And it's like we've reached the crazy stage of our world. And so it'd be interesting to hear people actually talking about things like that and moving away from some of the other topics. I think we've got to bring up housing, which is an urban, rural, and suburban issue.
Yes.
And so far I've seen one candidate really hit that hard.
Talk about it.
Hit that hard. Now, I know that Kamala Harris has a reparations home ownership something going on, but I think that Elizabeth Warren has a pretty comprehensive plan. So I'm looking forward to that. And actually looking forward to the debates this time. I'm going to slip out and head to this event at the NAACP, and I will trust you to ask all the right questions, Rashida.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. We have a special edition of Authentically Detroit. We'll be talking to U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib when we come back. We want to welcome U.S. Representative of the 13th Congressional District, Representative Rashida Tlaib. Thank you for being with us on Authentically Detroit.
Oh, thank you so much. I love the title of this, Authentic.
Yes, we are Authentically Detroit. How you doing? It's so good to see you, my friend.
I love being home. I love being with my people, rooted in the community.
You're home.
Yes.
They sent you home. So I'm just going to get right into some of the news items of the day. So the NAACP, the 110th convention is here in the city of Detroit. And I asked Donna this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to ask you, what does a national organization like the NAACP and all of the presidential candidates who are coming, what does that mean for Detroit in our particular moment, right in this moment right now? Yeah.
I mean, what it means, I think what it means, the fact that they came here to convene here, and I think in a time that's pretty dark in our country, they came to a birthplace of many movements.
Yeah.
And I always say, welcome to where movements are birthed, where if you're not feeling strong, then come here. You leave stronger,
strengthened. Yes,
so much feeling, so much this people power, kind of that comes from just connecting with Detroiters. For many of them, they're going to leave with, I hope, with an idea that folks don't feel like they have a seat at the table right now. Mm-hmm. Folks feel left behind, not seen or heard right now, and it's not just on the national level, it's all levels of government. People want to see this new era of the civil rights and the social justice movement in our country take it a different, notch higher through policy making, but also through movement work on the ground.
Yeah, we're sort of at a crossroads. We were talking about this earlier in terms of the civil rights movement. Where do you see the pivot? Where does the pivot have to take place to move civil rights work forward in our country? Yeah,
so the Justice for All Civil Rights Act that I'm introducing, I've been working on for the last 6-7 months. I have a local work group in the district, been a number of incredible thought thinkers, attorneys that have pushed back against police brutality, inequity in education. All of those things. I mean, we're right now debating in Michigan whether or not a child has a right to literacy. I mean, that's how deep-rooted it is. Michigan lost more black home ownership than any other state.
Yes.
Poverty's increased among Michigan children, especially in communities of color. So for me, I just want folks, when they listen to this, know that, yes, we have the Civil Rights Act. But guess what? The last 50 years, the courts have become increasingly more conservative, and they pass case law now. They've decided on decisions that said you have to show intentional discrimination, that disparate impact is not enough. To say that the impact of the policy in itself is discriminatory. Let me give you an example. Driver's license responsibility fee.
Yes.
We knew that it was a direct target, and the direct disparate impact was on majority of African-American drivers.
Yep.
And, because, again, of the watering down, because of the court system, we had this, threshold that we had to show that this wasn't possible at the moment. And it took me 2 years to put a national case, a class action case together here in the state with national organizations. And then, of course, the governor had decided we're going to repeal it. Well, I didn't want to repeal it. I wanted to go to court and get people their money back.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. Ooh. But so there is a new era of the civil rights. Yes, exactly. I think a lot of us were impacted directly from it. I know my family members were and folks in my neighborhood. But we have to change the threshold. We have to reinforce what the true intent of the Civil Rights Act, which was disparate impact was also a way to show that somebody's rights were violated.
That's right.
And so we got to get back to those roots. And that Justice for All Civil Rights Act, again, is so critically important. It will transform lives because it will be around education equity, around access to clean water. If you even look at what happened to emergency manager, I bet you if we could do disparate impact, we would have been able to reverse that immediately.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, work being done behind the scenes to push back against voter suppression, against, the attack, I think, on our education system, all of those things on the front line. I don't believe it's going to happen unless we can go ahead and change the current Civil Rights Act, open it up and say disparate impact is also a way to show that there's civil rights violation.
You're highlighting issues that are very close to the hearts of Detroiters, where the democratization of power was stripped from them under emergency management to really have a say-so on what happens in our schools in the city of Detroit, what happens with our water in the city of Detroit. And so I think that's great. I think it's a good answer to the issues that the constituencies have been bringing forward.
Yeah, and this is a national impact. I know a lot of folks, Congressman John Lewis and late Senator Ted Kennedy had introduced something similar in 2008. This is much more expansive, much more aggressive, bolder, but it does get to the core of restoring the Civil Rights Act and its original form and its original intent.
Yeah. So speaking of civil rights, you spoke Monday morning, at the NAACP convention, and you said, quote, and I want you to unpack this for me, okay? I'm not going nowhere, not until I impeach this president. And I guess my question for you is, I feel like there are some people who are there and are at that point. It seems like the Democratic leadership in the House is not just yet.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Well, I can tell you, there's 95 members of Congress that supported the articles of impeachment that came up, the motion to at least not table it and put it up forward. The Watergate class, it's the largest, and we are, ironically, the largest incoming class since Watergate. That Watergate class didn't move forward because they thought, we couldn't get it out of the Senate. I mean, we didn't pass $15 minimum wage increase saying, we can't get it out of the Senate.
That's right.
We put country first. The fact is, this is not only a failed presidency, and yes, he has a number of character flaws. It's the fact that this hate agenda, this kind of lawlessness approach, is seeping into policymaking. The fact that he hasn't followed through on congressional subpoenas. The fact that, I mean, we just held
told his staffer not to show up for a subpoena. Yeah.
Well, 3 members of his cabinet already been held in contempt by our congressional committees. We can't do our job. I always tell people, they said, well, focus on the issues. I said, let me tell you, in oversight, it's like asking a doctor to go ahead and have surgery on someone without getting the test results of exactly where they start or how to make the person better. You can't ask us to do our job as a co-equal branch of government if this president thinks himself above the law. Yeah. If he's not going to follow through on requests, but also follow through on, one, he hasn't He has not complied with the United States Constitution. He didn't divest in his businesses. And, in Detroit, we call that, what's going on right now. We understand. I was just talking to folks at my coffee hour in the East Side today. This is his upgraded version of pay to play. And they all nodded their heads and they're like, you're right. And I'm like, exactly. This is a person that is a crooked CEO that's currently in the Oval Office that's putting profit before people, his friends before the people. This is not a business. This is the federal government. This is the people, people's country. This is not where you can come in and make a profit and allow people to stay at your DC hotel in the same breath that they're trying to lobby the government to do something and to act on something. So I think it's critically important. And truly what I meant is like, I ain't going anywhere. And
That's right.
and I'm going to continue to highlight the fact that this is a lawless president, that this is king-like approach, that this is a failed presidency. I mean, if you can't see that it's a failed presidency, that he has this hate agenda instead of a policy agenda, instead of pushing forward and saying, well, what have you done about prescription drugs? You said you were going to do something about it. You said you were going to do something about bringing plants back to the, regarding trade. You haven't done any of those things. It's actually gotten worse for the American people.
Can you respond to one of the things that comes up for me after what you said is that the tweet that the president sent telling you and 3 other congressional members to essentially go back, send them back, or we all know the quote. It was in response to a debate about immigration reform. And he was able to completely... Was it?
Was it? Exactly. I think a lot of us are trying to read his mind. We're trying to figure out what that response was. If you look at it, even the timing, I'm not sure what it's about. I think it was at a point where he wanted to distract us. At the same time that he did that, he's behind the scenes trying to change asylum laws. He's also behind the scenes trying to disenfranchise communities of color through deregulating EPA. Behind the scenes, he's trying to do things around the census that, behind closed doors. There are things being done right now to distract us that is being distracted by his so-called tweets. It is unbelievable that in 2019, as a member of Congress, people are not asking me about Boost Act or Justice for All Act or trying to ask me, hey, what do you think is going to happen with $15 minimum wage increase? What do you think the answer would be about ending poverty among children in our country, ending hunger in our country? These are things that my residents want me to talk about. And that's exactly what we do at the neighborhood service centers. We uplift people any way we can through government agencies, through advocacy. And you have a president that doesn't respond to actual policy questions.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous ideology. And I want listeners to know it. It's a dangerous ideology that is now, it's not just words. It is seeping into policymaking. It is seeping into administrative changes that are going to take us decades to undo.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the squad. Yeah. I think it's affectionately called the squad, you guys, this freshman class of Congresswomen. But you said today that we are the squad. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I think I want folks to know first, people think like we called ourselves that. It's interesting. We have similar ideals and values, and we're all of us, I think, are first of something, right? And many of us didn't run to be first of anything. We really, many of us ran because we cared about the community that raised us, and we wanted to do right by them. And yes, and I can tell you specifically, when we come in this thing about leaving us a squad, and I know it's affectionate, but it sounds like we're some insurgent. And I'm like, no. If you're for equity and justice, then you are the squad too. We are very much on the forefront in saying we're done in criminalization of our communities.
Yes.
We're done in this militarization of our communities, especially communities of color. And I always tell people, I've ran on abolishing ICE because I grew up in the northern border in Southwest Detroit.
Talk about it.
Exactly. And I have specifically in 2010, I was pregnant with my second child. I was a sitting state house member. And I remember they did some sort of ICE operation right in front of a school. And then they did it again. And I remember pushing back, and it was during the Obama administration, and many of them came to my district and saying, look, we're really sorry. We weren't supposed to doing these operations in front of schools, because that's our own policy. No, not in front of schools, funerals, or churches.
Right.
And they are violating their own policies. But even then, I saw the broken administration around ICE and the fact that it wasn't making us safer. It was actually focusing on all of us and targeting, again, my immigrant neighbors, but also those that, I have a woman that was jogging around Clark Park, got stopped and had to show her green card.
Oh,
That's unbelievable. That is a police state that I'm not going to support. And so it is a broken system. It needs to be audited. It needs to be completely dismantled. We didn't have ICE years ago. And before 9/11, and I can tell you we were fine. We had Border Patrol, we had all those, and I want people to differentiate between that, right?
Okay.
Unpackage that. This is a new agency that came about afterwards.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's important to know that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the Border Patrol and the field operators, those other folks you see. We used to call them the folks in the green uniform, the folks
in the green and white cars.
Yes. No, this is a different agency that is very, in some cases rogue. And I've seen it. I've seen it personally where the head of ICE enforcement didn't know what the local folks were doing and showing up to doors without warrants. You see it now happening.
It's insane.
It is. And I'm not going to support that kind of action towards our communities. We can do better. And this is not the agency that's making us safer.
I want to switch gears just a little bit to a critique that I often hear, especially online, and I've seen you actually respond to this in terms of there is a segment of people who say that you don't do enough for the 13th Congressional District. Yeah. How do you respond to that?
Oh, I can tell you, I've been there 7 months and I've introduced like 6 bills. Not only that, our 4 neighborhood service centers, you ask any congressional member, I opened 4 neighborhood service centers where getting people through everyday issues goes hand in hand with legislation. I know what they think. They listen to the tweets. They think that's what it's all about. When just the other day, this was profound. Like just the other day, we were able to send a letter to a company that was, basically was saying insulin wasn't, preventive care. Mm-hmm. And I remember she came to my coffee hour, and this is exactly why the service centers are so important. And she was paying $2,800 for her insulin.
Oh yeah, the
it's
costs have skyrocketed.
But the company's like, oh, there's not preventive care. I said, well, it prevents death.
Yes.
And I put it in the letter. Like, are you really going to follow the Trump administration's definition of preventive care? And that's who changed the definition. And she told me, Rashida, I was saving up. She said, I was saving up like every day to go get the insulin for my son. And when I showed up to the pharmacy, and she truly believes it's because of the letter, the power of the letterhead is wonderful. She was able to get it for $244.
Wow.
Even though that's still
a
lot.
High,
I know, I agree. But getting on the ground, being rooted, I can tell you, I hear more and more people saying, Rashida's everywhere. I have access to her. And when they have access to me, I can help them. Just today, a person came, she was in tears, like, please help me with this issue. And it was personal to her. And for her to have direct contact, eye-to-eye contact with me. The fact that I introduced the Boost Act, the most comprehensive, real economic justice tool that we've seen. People nationally, economic folks have said this is exactly the direction we do, which is repealing the GOP tax plan and saying, we're going to repeal that. Yep. And we're going to say if you can get between $3,000 to $6,000 tax credit, and you can be a student, you can be a caretaker, you can be on disability income and still qualify, and it will transform people's lives. So many of my residents are literally $400 away, emergency, away from actually getting into the cycle of poverty. The fact that I got amendments passed, I got my first bill passed out of committee in financial services, where if you get medically necessary procedures, we can get that off of your credit report. It shouldn't be a part of your credit report. Also, how it stays on for 7 years?
Love that.
Yeah. If it stays on for 7 years, no, I got it down to 4 years. And it's going to go through the House, and I'm going to be a new member of Congress getting my first bill passed. That's really, could transform people's lives today. And so I continue to work extremely hard. It's unfortunate that people will focus on the hate rhetoric, the violence that is coming towards me as just, again, my mere presence being there. But
your mere presence makes news. You said
exactly. I can sneeze, and they'll be like, "Oh, Rashida Tlaib sneezed when somebody said this." I've seen it, and it's, oh my God. But I can tell you, I have the 3rd poorest congressional district. There is nobody else out there that's hustling like me. I don't care if it's Western Wayne or downriver in the middle of Detroit. I am making sure that That is the focus.
Yeah.
And from Justice for All Civil Rights Act, the Boost Act, from pushing back against this discriminatory practice of car insurance. I mean, I got one of my amazing Congressional Black Caucus members, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, and I introduced the PAID Act, which is, pushing back against these non-driving factors. And I'm educating my colleagues. I got 30 of them to support my original bill. And they all get it. They know credit score has nothing to do with somebody's driving history.
It's a proxy for so many things, especially race.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So now that I'm like on this national stage and people are paying attention, I love it when people wanted me to comment about the tweets. But then I said, but I want to talk about my policy agenda.
Yeah.
So I use it to uplift my residents any way I can. I consistently do. I write op-eds. I push back. I use the power of the letterhead. My neighborhood service centers have changed people's lives today.
Yeah.
I love when this
You
woman
house
tells
one
me,
in our organization.
Yes. And we're just going to get that started up and running. But you'll see, from getting their taxes done for free, preventing tax foreclosures. Just the other day, one of my residents who's, a veteran, couldn't get, they were on some sort of list, but I was able to make one phone call, get him home health care.
Yeah.
He needed home care, and we got it for him right away. People need to know, like, that is the service politics kind of approach that I take for in office. And those are the residents, they love it and they go, I know you got these little hiccups and these things happen. And it's like, well, sometimes it's my fault and sometimes it isn't. But more importantly, I will never sell you out. I will never back down. I will always work hard. And that's one thing is I don't stop. I don't stop until people feel like they're seen, feel like they belong, feel like I'm working on their behalf, and actually see it. Mm-hmm. From 2 amendments that I got passed to a number of things legislative that I had done, but it's always connected to the service center work.
And I can attest to that. I've seen you have this national platform, but you've also make sure that your residents have access to you, like physical access. You would be the last one to leave an event to make sure that, your people have the opportunity to speak with you and express whatever concern that they may have. It really is an admirable thing. The other thing that I want to mention is that the presidential debate is happening in the city of Detroit this week. And I have a question for you. Do the debates really matter? Do they really sway
I love
folks?
that you said that.
Yeah.
Or that you asked this question, because I want folks to know this. People's performance in debate shouldn't outweigh what they've actually done while they've been in office.
Talk about it.
I'm going to say it again. Look at their voting records. Look at what the legislation they've introduced while in office. Look how they voted before they actually started running for office. That is more important than whether or not they got some great tagline or they answered a question a certain way. Even when it's things like, okay, good, I'm glad this person support that issue. But they've been in office. They've held office. Some of them are United States senators. Yeah. Some of them have been in other positions, being governor, maybe local office. Many of the things that they're saying they support now, they could have done while they've been in office, and some have and some haven't. But pay attention to that. Pay attention to people's voting record, because that matters more, because that will translate those words and those kinds of bigger picture of where they are in positions. It has to translate into actual real action and votes, and please pay attention to that. I can tell you, I've seen people not perform really well in debates, but man, their legislation is real, and they get it, and they'll work hard, and I think that matters. It should outweigh.
I think we require, I guess, as a society, for our candidates to be super charismatic and very front-facing, sometimes at the expense of ignoring really the actual work and track record of candidate, and it can slip us up sometimes.
It is very important.
Yeah.
I think we got folks that can change, but they had time to change before they ran for president.
Yeah. So I have one last question for you, and it really is about economic justice. It's about climate justice. And I really want to know from you, like, really essentially, what is your litmus test in judging whether development that's happening in your district is advantageous or disadvantageous for residents?
And I love this question because, there's folks, and these are people that are my biggest critics that you'll see online. These are people that have been pro-business, have been supportive of the big tax giveaway for the stadium and say, oh, well, Rashida, you don't support development. I said, well, wait. 60% of Detroiters don't work in the city of Detroit right now. That is not a lot. That's facts.
That's fact.
That is. And the fact that I've seen actually poverty increase. If you look at the numbers of children living in poverty in Detroit, it's actually increased. So all this development that's happening in the 7.2 miles, even as things are trying to get out, this shift away, taking our public dollars towards for-profit. Now, we're not talking about public. We're not talking about like a public school or a recreation center or where it should be going to parks and things like that. It's toward corporations that some have signed up 15 to 30 years not having to pay property taxes, right? So my litmus test is this. If there is not a legally binding contract that is tied to the promises being made by this development projects, because many of them come in and say, well, this is what it's going to do. It's going to make sure that we are rebuilding, some after-school program. I think one said, oh, we're going to fix 60 trinkets, 60 basketball courts. It's true, though.
Yeah.
Some are saying, oh, we're going to hire 50% of Detroiters. Well, good. Let's put it on a legally binding contract that's
with teeth
that actually the host community signs on to, because mayors, city council members, these entities, these are folks, elected folks that come and go, but the neighborhood folks don't go anywhere. And so having these host communities, it has been done. It's been done in Philadelphia with the Pittsburgh Penguins, where they got and I'm not saying this is what we want, but one of them got a legally binding contract for a grocery store, for a permanent employment center, helping people with resumes and things.
That's what the community identified.
Yes. And that to me is a win-win, especially when the shift is giving these big tax breaks that would have went to city services, that would have went to schools. It's not fair. It's not fair to the people at home that continue to suffer and sacrifice, because these are for-profit. This is billion-dollar corporations that are going to make profits off of our backs.
Yeah. So, of course, I can talk to you all day, but I want to make sure that you have time to go home with your family. What do you want to leave with us? What do you want our listeners to know?
I just want you to know, raise the bar of what you expect of your members of Congress and your elected folks. It can't just be about introducing legislation. It also has to be about using the power to the letterhead, speaking up when you see injustice. It has to be about making sure that if you're going through a challenge or issue, it's not like, well, that's not my issue, that's a city issue or a county issue. No, how can you, really demand a different level of public service that will help transform people's lives? Because the more I have colleagues that are starting to move towards that direction and move towards raising the bar of what we expect in our local and state and county and so forth, elected officials, the more I think they'll stay rooted and engage folks. I wish more people called me from the district. Yeah. I have a bunch of haters that call me from all over the place over and over again. I think 70% of those folks call regularly because I'm not sure what they do.
People need to understand that calls still work. You can still call your congressperson.
It is. And so I want folks to know, engage. Yeah. Tell us what needs to be done. I love that just today, somebody came to the coffee hour and said, we need really, really support for elder abuse. This is what happened to me, Rashida. And it honestly, I looked at my team and I said, we got to do something about that. And I love it because that's how I'm able to stay rooted, and that's how I'm able to introduce really authentic legislation.
And that's how you're able to come home and be loved when you get here. Yeah. Thank you so much, U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib from the 13th Congressional District. We appreciate you for being with us
thank
tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of Authentically Detroit. You can like and subscribe to us on all the platforms where you're able to listen to podcasts. We will see you in a couple of weeks.